Hello, I'm Eric Horwitz. I'm an 8-figure entrepreneur running a service company that takes me 8 hours a month to manage. This is the continuing series on how to fully delegate your business so you can have what I have, which is a ton of money, freedom, time that is only from everything I will be teaching you in this video. So I run a company, Lift Enrichment. It helps teach cooking classes to children in the United States, 290 instructors, 18,000 kids a week we teach. And I'm also a business consulting with Win-Win with Eric Consulting, in which I help entrepreneurs free up 20 hours a week of their time in just 90 days by working one-on-one with me. It's very dialed in and niched, and I love doing it. So in this series, we talked about the overarching strategy. We talked about operations, but now we're going to talk about sales. In the previous video, I mentioned I was talking to a buddy of mine at a wonderful Japanese restaurant here in Dubai called Kira. And the next question I asked him is this. He said, hey, look, operations dialed in. You gave me $1 million sales. I got it. My team is great. My systems are great. The delivery is great. Okay, great, I said. Now let's talk about your sales. Who do you have running sales? I got like this one guy. Okay, cool. And who's in charge of that guy? I guess me. Okay, so you are the sales manager, sales director. And also, do you have KPIs for this guy? Not really. Do you check in on his outbound calls per week, his first-time appointments, his proposals, his signed clients every week, every month, every quarter? Not really. So the next key thing is a counter to the operations question, which is, if your sales team was given, let's say $3 or $4 million in leads, the total value of all the leads is about that, and hopefully you'll convert 25-33%, so you have $1 million in business. Do you feel comfortable with your sales department running all that without you? And that's a tougher question, because $3 or $4 million in potential leads could be 100, 200, 300 different proposals coming in. It depends on the ticket value of your client. Is your ticket value $2,000? Is it 10 grand a year? Is it 50 grand a year? Is it 100 grand a year? It's a lot. It's a lot of leads to manage, and you need a good system to do it all. And I've got that. If you gave me my company several million in new proposals, we'd hand it to our sales team, run by our sales director named Alex, and he'd take care of it. But it wasn't always this way. In fact, let's start with level 1 of your sales department and go to that second advanced level, beginner to advanced. Beginner starts with typically where every entrepreneur is that grows their company to $1 million plus, which is the entrepreneur is the key salesperson, or as I like to call them, the sales rep, the sales representative. They are doing the important thing, which is that first meeting with the prospect, all the way to the follow-up, and close. But guess what? You're not going to scale your company if you are the sales rep. And you might have a sales assistant, you might have some helps, you might have a BDR, you might have some cold callers, but if somebody has to do the full sales cycle, whether it's, and hopefully it's high ticket, 2, 10, 20, 100 grand in value. But there was a point in about April, I think it was 2022 or 2023, where I had like that come to Jesus moment where I was like, I'm so tired of doing the sales. I work with a lot of school districts. They know me, they like me, they trust me. We have a lot of success with them. And I was the one doing all the meetings and all of the follow-up with the help of a sales assistant named Raj. He's this awesome guy in the Philippines, been with my company many years. In fact, he's doing so well. This is really amazing. He bought his second house in the Philippines with the amount of money he was making with Lift Enrichment. That just makes me so happy to think about that people are truly succeeding and thriving working for my company, and it's a true win for everyone involved. So I went to a conference, an educational conference, and I shared a booth with a friend of mine who runs a company in the science after school summer camp space, and he had a woman who was his sales rep. And I was legitimately impressed with her because he had hired somebody in California that would do the entire sales cycle. I was the one running to the conference, talking to the vendors, talking to the prospects, booking meetings. He had all that dialed in. And from then on, I remember going to my HR team. I was like, look, guys, we got to hire somebody. So I'm not doing all of these meetings, all these proposals. When you are the owner of a company, sometimes you just get tired of doing that. So we went through a search. We went through Upwork, we went through all these sites, and we found someone, his name's Alex, who became our first sales representative. He was the first one we'd hired. He was based in South America, in another country, but he would do everything remote on Zoom. And basically, I would train him. So from then on, I showed him my pitch deck. I showed him, I had him record, I watched him do it. I trained him how to not just read the script, but the intonations along the script, because there's a journey that the prospective client went on. It was so dialed in where I could show him videos of me talking to other prospects, and I literally knew exactly when the client should laugh. There's like, insert funny little joke here, insert funny little joke here. In fact, an example of this was, since we teach cooking class to kids, there was a little point where I'd go, okay, I'm gonna show you the upcoming recipes your students will be learning to make. Just warning you, you might get a little bit hungry. And they go, and then we'd show them some food, but I like literally knew they all giggled at that point. So after a couple months, Alex was fully trained. He knew how to deliver the pitch, he knew how to follow up, and all the systems were in place. A couple months after that, we ascended him to sales director, and he hired a sales rep below them and some cold callers as well. That's kind of how it starts. You need a sales rep and ideally a cold caller. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a sales rep and a cold caller. In the way this isn't the official term, BDRs, SDRs, account executives, I don't care. The whole idea is this. The cold caller is that first level entry position where they're just going to make 80 to 100 calls a day to book a sales meeting, preferably on Zoom using Calendly or in person, but it's usually on Zoom. And they just run the numbers. You find a list of hundreds of prospects, they call, and if you do your work and your experience, you can book meetings. I call that our partnership coordinator. Some people call it a cold caller. Somebody call that a business development representative or BDR. I don't care what you call it. I would call them sales, but they're more marketing because they just book meetings. When the meetings happen, they make sure the meetings happen and pass them on to this person. That is the sales representative or account executive or whatever you want to call it. I don't care. What this person does is they do the meeting, the first time appointment, FTA. That meeting with a prospect where you talk for 30 minutes to an hour, and then it leads to a proposal. The proposal leads to follow-up, and hopefully a close. Your sales team needs to have 1 or 2 confident sales reps, 1 or 2 confident cold callers, and a good sales director. A lot of these issues come when the sales rep, typically not the caller, the sales rep is not good or not good enough. They're not closing enough. I had a client whose sales rep just wasn't closing much, and I'm like, look, you got to either train this person up or fire them and find somebody better. It's a very hard position for most entrepreneurs who are the sales reps to let go of. But once you see it work, you'll never go back to you being the salesperson again. So let's talk a little bit about the KPIs. I love KPIs in sales because it's simple. Literally every week you should be tracking outbound calls, which could be a email, phone call, or even text message or WhatsApp. In Dubai, that's very popular, to prospects. You need to track how many first-time appointments happen per week. 1, 2, 3 on average. It's up to you. How many meetings you have on Zoom that actually happen. I don't care about the ones that are set. Setting is okay, but they need to happen. And then you need to have a metric on the proposals that are in play. So proposals are what's the dollar value of proposals from that week and maybe even that month that have come in the door. That shows that your sales rep is doing the meeting, the proposals happen, and then of course, how many sign? If they don't sign, what's the point? And every one of those 4 areas, the ball drops on a sales rep, and you got to figure out, is he not closing enough? Is he not doing enough calls? Is he not doing enough FTAs? Is he doing enough FTAs but he's not closing? Your sales team has to have weekly reports on all those factors. Now, how do you track all these things? Well, you use systems. So what you need is a CRM. I use Pipedrive because it's easy. I'm not good at tech really, but a CRM like Pipedrive, what happens is on Pipedrive. I could do a Loom video on Pipedrive, show you how to do it. It's not hard. And all my clients, I make sure they're on it so that they have something to track. But the cool thing is when you call a prospect, you just put into Pipedrive an activity and you say, I called them, and it tracks, and that's one. Then maybe the goal is maybe 70 per day or 300 or 400 per week for a sales rep or a cold caller. That's easy to track. It's all calculating that. The next is FTAs. This is actually easier to track because you're not going to have tons, most likely. For me, it was maybe 2, 3, 5 a week because you have to make calls to set the meetings. Proposals signed, that total value, and signed clients is also easy to track because my ticket sizes were quite large, 10, 20, 50K, and we would just track all those manually on Google Sheets, or you can use Pipedrive as well. There you go. KPIs are easy, but you'd be surprised how many sales CEOs I talk to, and we talk about operations dialed in. I go to sales. I'm like, okay, cool. So your sales guy, how many calls is he making a week? I don't know. Why? What do you mean you don't know? Don't you want a minimum? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. How many meetings does he have a week? FTAs? I don't know. Maybe 1 or 2. You should have that dialed in from your marketing efforts. And then what's his total proposals that he's brought in that week or that month? I don't know. How many did he sign that week, that month? I don't know. You got to know these numbers if you're going to dial in that sales team. All right. Now we're going to talk about that sales director role. So you have your little operation. You have the sales team. You got a sales rep or 1 or 2. You got a cold caller 1 or 2. And now you need a very good sales director. Now, here's something I think it's a little controversial, but to me it's kind of true, which is oftentimes, not always, your sales rep is not your best sales director. Back in 2019, I had a sales rep, very good at closing schools, school districts, and talking to people. But as a director, she was awful. I said, hey, you're going to hire a team. You're going to train them. You're going to write SOPs. And she would literally have one of her sales reps it was in California, drove 1 hour to her home. She would just verbalize everything, hoping that notes were taken, and then nothing after that. And then a 1 hour drive back. And the sales rep was like, yeah, I learned a lot, but there was no retention. And also, the sales director wasn't really following any written SOPs. She wouldn't write SOPs. She didn't want to write SOPs. And the process was a disaster. If you have an 8-hour meeting with somebody and nothing is written down, nothing concrete, because in any type of meeting, even this video, you're going to retain a lot, maybe just for listening. But unless I gave you like a notes version of this, it's not going to stay because, you might get into a situation. Okay, what do I say when they say that? What do I say when they say that? You got to have somebody who is good at writing SOPs, and that's a key part of a director. Also, this is my opinion, the sales director should not be doing sales. Or if they do, it's like very little, the top 1, 2, or 3 clients. That's it. I hate it when like the sales director is also doing all these sales because their job is to use their sales team. Their bonuses are how well their sales team does. So sometimes your best sales rep is not a good sales director. I also hate part-time sales managers. I knew a guy who was paying $4 or $5 grand a month for a part-time sales manager director. No, you can hire somebody remote in South America or Asia or Europe for that amount and they'll work for you full-time and you'll get much better results. This is another key thing, which is if you, the CEO, are the sales director, you're not giving your sales team the support that they need. And this is true because are you spending 40 hours a week listening to their calls? Shadowing them, training them, doing role play, updating SOPs. A good sales director is going to do all that. And in fact, I estimate most sales directors that are the entrepreneurs, they're giving maybe 5-10 hours a week to their team, and then they're doing everything else. So go hire that sales director. They're not as expensive as you think. You make their commissions where they make most of their money, and suddenly you have someone who's every day is focused on sales. You're spending 1 or 2 hours a day, maybe 3 max, they're doing 8. So you're gonna get more volume. And that's why, again, in my consulting experience, you hire a good sales director, you train them, and now the entrepreneur's time, you freed up 20 hours a week, 80 hours a month, hundreds and hundreds of hours a year, and lots of time and money. The next thing is with the sales department, this is something I've been seeing lately, and I don't like it, which is follow-up sucks. Follow-up I don't know what it is with this online world or something, but like there has to be a good follow-up system. Outreach and FTAs happen. Follow-ups is what closed the sale. I think I read Zig Ziglar had a report. He's a famous business guru. It takes 5 to 11 points of follow-up to close any client. And I myself, I follow a ton of sales, marketing, operations, leadership, content creators that are also business experienced. And I hop into their meeting and their meeting happens and the follow-up is like 0. No, not many calls, not many text messages. You have to follow up. Most people, and the nice thing about things like Pipedrive, I can look at how often they follow up. You have to know these numbers. So if you meet on a Monday, proposal goes out Monday evening, you follow up Wednesday, and then Friday, then the following Tuesday, and then Thursday. Maybe it's 2 weeks of follow-up, whatever it is, but it's all tracked. And when I go to entrepreneurs and say, okay, the proposal was sent this date, when was the first follow-up, and when did it happen afterwards? And these are not pushy check-ins. You can follow up every 48 hours until somebody says yes or no, depending on what you're selling, depending on the discount offer, depending on how urgent the pain point is that you're here to solve. But it just saddens me that follow-up is not taken as seriously as it is. And actually that's a key thing of getting more clients closed in the world of business. So wrapping up here, that sales department, if you can give them $3 to $4 million in leads, even 2 at the very least, and they can do all of it, follow up without you involved, you've got yourself a sales team. You've got a sales director. You got an operations director. But guess what? Who do they report to? That president, that CEO figure. You got to delegate that. In the next video, we're going to talk about delegating all the managers. And to be honest, you don't want to delegate that position until the directors are lodged into their places here. That's level 1, and then we go to level 2. If you're an entrepreneur wanting to delegate more, if you need help with this, I offer one-on-one consulting, and in just the first 90 days, you're going to free up 20 hours a week, guaranteed. It's what I do very well at. My company takes 8 hours a month to manage. It's 8 figures. And I love doing this. So book a call with me at winwinwitheric.com. We'll see you in the next video.